Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. I have a very amazing bonus upload that I want to share with you all right now. Before we jump into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And also, folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this bonus, shall we? All right, guys, as you know, there's always been kind of some strange activity out in our wilderness. When I say our, I know I shouldn't just include America because it is worldwide, but in America, there has been just a vast amount of people disappearing in national parks and state parks and such. And the FBI has files on all of these disappearances, which many people don't really know about. You know, Tom Mezek, when Tom Mezek disappeared 45 minutes north of my home, and it is a missing 411 by David Paulides. The FBI showed up and they were there for 2, maybe 3 days for no reason. There was no reason they should have been there. They was not a tender-aged youth. There was no state lines crossed. Even if there was foul play, the New York State Police Department and the Warren County Sheriffs would have dealt with it. But the FBI was there. When asked, because I did ask some state troopers that were on the scene and some Warren County, I asked the Warren County Undersheriff, also some DEC agents or officers, what happened and why, and they couldn't answer me. So here is a very interesting account where the FBI was involved. Check it out. All right, guys. So like I said in the intro, some very interesting video footage and some very terrifying encounters. And one actually has a drawing from an FBI sketch artist. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting upload. Let's get into it. Today's first part of the upload, we're going to jump right in and discuss feral persons. I'm on the North Carolina side of the Great Smoky Mountains. Lived here my entire life. All of us here know what's in these woods and mountains. Since the 30s or 40s, there have been feral persons living in these mountains. They're fast. They will snatch livestock and children. The FBI knows. It's why they don't get involved. I've heard stories that there was some attempt to kill these feral persons, but they still exist even today. And I'm not talking about some end of days extremist who took to the woods. I mean feral, completely wild, their own language, living underground. We don't go into the woods at night. During the day, we make sure we stay on the trails. Sometimes you will smell them, that putrid stench. At night you'll hear them hollering, supposed inbreds. The locals around here know what happened to Dennis Martin. he was snatched by one of these feral persons. It's not uncommon for people to go missing here. They're normally found, but you'd also be surprised at the number of children that simply disappear. The FBI has covered it up for years. Where do you think the movie The Hills Have Eyes came from? It's true. I hear them from time to time, disturbing sounds. They live all up and down the mountains here in national parks and forests. The stories we all heard growing up about these feral persons were told to us due to the fact that so many people would go missing in the mountains. Of course, it was a way for our parents to scare us so we would not wander off too far from them or venture into the woods alone. And Dennis Martin was used as an example. My grandfather recalls the newspapers blowing the story up in 1969, I believe. The newspapers said one thing, while Tennessee, North Carolina locals said another. The locals said this then, and they say this now. There are feral persons living in these mountains. The government does know they are here, and they have made attempts to kill them off, but they have not been able to kill them all off. Yet the population now is thought to be minimal. One of these feral persons abducted Dennis Martin and ate him. This particular feral was spotted by the family in the woods, who were in the same vicinity, and stated they saw a feral trying to hide from them behind a brush, and was hanging a small child from his back like a backpack. The feral was described as being very hairy and tall, wearing a very worn, dirty shirt. The military came and stayed for a week in these mountains, killing a handful of feral persons, including one who abducted Dennis. Dennis's bones were found by the military, but this was hidden from the family in papers. One of the agents that worked on this and was ordered into the woods to kill the feral persons ended up committing suicide some years later, not being able to cope with what he had seen in those mountains, and after other assignments into similar incidents. My grandfather claimed to have seen 2 of them in his life. He told me that his first experience was when he was a child, years before the Martin case, when he and his dad were on the trail in the woods on the Tennessee-North Carolina line, when they both approached a dead-end area that bordered a heavy tree line. Just inside that tree line, they saw a wild hillbilly leaning over a deer eating its insides. Wild hillbilly is what my grandfather said the locals used to call them long before any media named them anything else. The wild hillbilly was manlike, long hair, and was very oily and dirty. The body hair was excessive. The man was bloody, having obviously just killed this deer. My grandfather said that his dad would later say that the hillbilly had a string of deer guts in his deformed hand. My grandfather has always mentioned the smell of pure garbage and vomit. They both stopped and walked backwards until they were out of the hillbilly's sight, but said the hillbilly was obviously startled and screamed as if saying, "Stay the F back, this is my deer." The hillbilly was dragging the deer back further into the tree line as my grandfather and his dad backed away. The second sighting is when my grandfather was hunting in 1997, and he and his buddy saw a female. They said they were taken back at the obvious sign of breasts, but this one looked more Bigfoot-like. She was running and then suddenly jumped into some hole in the ground and disappeared. They did not go and look into it. This is where the underground cave systems come into play. Inside of the mountains and in the caves is where the wild men, Bigfoot creatures are at, and it's why they cannot be found. It's worldwide. Governments know about them. They don't get involved with these creatures unless there is disappearances, and they have to go in and kill, as they did with Dennis Martin. Our governments admitting to these creatures and UFOs would break down our religious systems. Dealing with the public about these creatures is something that has to be avoided for years at all costs. Our caves and mountains cannot be controlled. The underground cave systems are massive, and what's in them is beyond basic comprehension. The feral persons are cannibalistic. They are inbred. They will often snatch children and eat them. Some are raised to reproduce. The geriatric population and the disabled are easy targets for food because it's not expected they will fight back. They also have trapdoors in the woods and doors in the mountains. They will often steal clothing, dig in the trash, take pets and farm animals. Though I personally have never seen a feral person, I do see evidence of them and smell them as well. I have lots of experience with other things I've seen in these mountains, more demonic, but so far I have yet to see a feral person. I believe, though, only because of the other things I've experienced out here throughout my life. I also believe that these missing persons cases will not be solved. Kids, hunters, tourists, all missing in a blink of an eye. Everyone always expects reasonable explanations for things because we are so primitive still. Our eyes are just not open to what's really out there. I don't believe much of the population could mentally handle or cope with it if they did know the truth. Alright, so the first video clip is some sort of quadruped creature. It's white, running through the woods. The guy who sees it is standing at a distance. When I first saw this, I actually was brought back to the time that Terry, Jody's late brother and great guy, was a sub here. He was telling us about an experience his grandson had with the large quadruped dog-like creature running alongside his vehicle in the wood line. That's what kind of reminded me of. Check it out, guys. Alright, so definitely a very interesting video clip. You can see it just run through the woods, and it does not look like it is hindered by any kind of underbrush or growth or anything that has fallen. It just steadily moves through the wood line there. On to today's second encounter. So we all know that the Great Smokies are a very dangerous but beautiful place. This next part of the upload is very interesting, and I remember one of the first experiences that I had looked into about a Dogman sighting some years after I had mine in 1994 was a encounter in the Great Smokies on the Parkway, and a woman had seen one running full speed in the woods, paralleling her vehicle. So definitely very creepy, and even the Native Americans knew that something was up back in the day. here's the second part. This is one I debated even discussing because of the lack of evidence behind it. I was told about a hidden cemetery in Marion, North Carolina by two Native Americans. They both had details that convinced me it was true, or they believe it was true. I decided I'd share it just in hopes that someone else may know about this place. Me and a buddy attempted to locate this cemetery with no luck. Outside of the town of Marion, North Carolina, deep in the forest, is a cemetery. It was used by the Native Americans as a burial ground for, well, not pets, but demonic animals and animal-like creatures, dogmen. The story goes that the Native Americans were very aware of the evil that resided in the mountains and woods, and they often had to protect their tribe from animal-like creatures that lived in caves, hid in the trees, and possessed such an evil that just the sight of them alone would cause you to stop breathing. If you were a weak warrior, woman and child were warned of where not to venture. Many natives had perished from these creatures, who often changed appearances, but were always more animal-like. If you laid eyes on one of these creatures, it would immediately snatch your soul from your body. You would instantly stop breathing and would pass. Your soul now is in possession of the creature. The toughest warriors of the tribe for ages battled the creatures. A child would be used as bait. She would be blindfolded so that she could not look at the creature and would be left alone in the woods crying. This would lure the creature into the child. As the creature came near, the warriors who were hidden swarmed the creature, killed it, all while trying to avoid looking at it. For over 400 years, these creatures were supposedly buried in one spot, the cemetery that is outside of Marion. In 1930 was the last time a creature had been buried at that site by the great-grandfather of one of the Native Americans I had met, passed down through the family. It's said that this cemetery is blessed grounds and the bodies of these creatures are safe from returning, as long as they remain in the dirt of those grounds. The grounds are 3 acres of land that is supposed to house bodies of these creatures. Both gentlemen tell me that they have seen the land as children, but could not recall how to get there, being they were both under the age of 10 when they saw it with their fathers. Their fathers warned both children as to what was out there and why to avoid it forever, and never dig the dirt. They did describe the land as the most beautiful evil you had ever seen. Hundreds of stories lie singled out throughout the acres, each stone representing a location of a creature's burial beneath. The soil moves from beneath as the evil attempts to exit the ground. The gentlemen were not interested in going to this location, even after being offered money for their time. They did not want to go there. They only gave the general directions and the general location, which drives me crazy. So they are either talking about a dogman or some sort of shapeshifter. I know someone in the comment section is going to say skinwalker, but nope. That's Navajo, something else. The natives on this side of the country have different names for shapeshifters, and it's not a skinwalker. All right, let's get into today's final video clip. The gentleman is out in the woods and he sees something. He starts his camera rolling, and this thing, whatever it is way out in the distance, but we're talking he's way out in the woods where no one would be out that far. So this is what he got. Alright, so the person who filmed this swears that this is authentic. They did not have someone out in the woods with them. This could be a Bigfoot, a Dogman, or a feral person. Who knows? I wish he had zoomed in on it, but you don't get everything you want, right? On to today's third part, and this third part is with the picture from the FBI sketch artist. Feral Encounter, 1987. I went on a family vacation to the Great Smokies. I'm not sure what month, but it was in the spring. We had been there for a few days exploring just everywhere. This is something we have done every year, but this year it turned out to be very different. It was the day before we were leaving and heading back home. My dad decided we would all take a walk down the trails and streams. We were at Deep Creek Loop Trail. My dad had taken his fishing rod. Dad, Mom, my brother, myself were all walking by the stream. My brother and I kind of walked away from the stream a little ways off the trail and into the woods. I'm not sure how far we were from our parents. I do know I couldn't see them anymore. I don't remember if my brother or myself saw it first. From a side view, my first thought was an animal because of its movement through the trees. So, being very quiet, we stepped to the side of the tree and hid, and to be able to watch it. What I thought was an animal was indeed not. I heard it. It heard us and turned towards us. What I saw was horrifying. It was bent over, devouring a dead animal, possibly a deer. It was tearing at its guts out and eating them. It had bloody hands, face, and chest. I saw enough to know that it was not an animal, but dear God, it wasn't a man either. It had bloody flesh hanging from its mouth and hands. It had a large forehead that looked like it had knots. It was very hairy, but not as hairy as a bear or a Bigfoot, or between the blood and skin looked dirty. It was a deformed man. We were so scared my brother took off running first, and I followed. I turned just for a second to see if it was coming after us. As I was turning to run also, it had taken off running the other way. It didn't stand up totally straight, but I could tell that it was male. By what I saw, it was at least 6 feet tall, maybe even taller. Since it didn't stand straight up, it was hard to tell. It was pretty thick, but still very skinny and deformed. What got me was how it looked. So human-like and like a creature. I could also smell an odor that was like flesh and garbage. We ran back to my parents and told them. My dad at first thought I was playing a prank on them. He played along and walked back to where me and my brother had just come. A minute later, he came back and said, "We have to go now." His face pale, like he had lost all color. We went to the ranger station and told him everything. He said he was going to have to call another ranger, and they would look into it. He thanked us as we drove off. That was our last trip there. I'd had nightmares for a while, but I never spoke about it to anyone. I still don't know what we saw that day, but this was a man that was mixed with a monster. And this is a FBI sketch of what this person saw that day in 1987. Very terrifying. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed this bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It truly does mean the world to me. You guys are what makes this channel so special and what continues to make this channel grow and go. Without you guys, this channel would be just me talking into a mic to air. So thank you. The community that you guys have created in this comment section is just second to none. You guys are amazing. Thank you once again. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They're out there. They are dangerous. Share that little bit of information with those you love and care about. That same info we share here with each other on a daily basis with those folks, and it may just save their lives someday. Never stop pushing back, and God bless you all.